you're a piece of shit. Like, and just whacked me, bro.
Really?
Like, no, true story. Like, my sister wouldn't have married a guy like you, all these things. Like, it was just like her inner, like, mama bear protective older sister coming out. But she drilled me, bro. Like, and it floored me. And I was so broke and being such a degenerate that, like, I couldn't have an ego to be like, well, screw you, or, like, want to talk back to her because I was also in her house and everything. I'm like, dude, she's right. Like, you know what I mean? And it's a crazy story because I remember in the basement in that room, it's a master room. So you have your a bathroom and stuff. And I go to take a shower and I remember looking at myself in the mirror and I was like, this can never happen again. Like that's the thought I had. And ironically, Dallin Sullivan and Brian Belknap call me the next day and I'll never forget it. They're like, hey dude, you gotta check out this solar thing with Helios, son. And I'm like, what solar thing? Like, what's solar? Like, you know what I mean? They're like, I just made 10 grand, like the paycheck just hit my account. And I remember Dallin sent me a screenshot and it said Helios, son, and it was like 10 grand. I'm like, well, holy shit, if he just did that, no offense, but I'll go do 5 times that. Like, my ego kind of kicked in. That very next day, I showed up to a Helios Sun meeting, and that's where I met you and Rex and Spencer, and then I got out of the basement within 2 months.
Jeez. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Be Bright podcast. We got the boy here, Brandon Brown, known by many aliases, Brother Brown, the GOAT, whatever else you want to call him. But Brandon, just, for folks watching, give a little background about yourself and anything else you want to share.
Yeah, name's Brandon Brown. Been around for a long time. I met you actually back in, I think it was 2015, right?
Yeah.
Or is that when
16?
Is that when Helios Sun was around?
Yeah.
Okay, so I met you in 2016, but come from the same background, big Mormon family, a lot of family, and then I think I got in door-to-door in 2012 going into 2013. That was my first year. I went fresh out of high school, didn't do college, anything like that, and then here we are today on that long road, that long journey of that career of door-to-door.
But that's interesting. I guess I didn't know that. I mean, obviously, I've known you for quite a while, but I feel like some of the, maybe earlier stuff before meeting you, I don't know too much about. So, like, you just went, like, right out of high school straight into door-to-door?
Yeah, crazy thing. So I have a cousin, Craig, that sold, like, for Pinnacle Alarm back in actually probably back when you were there.
Yeah.
Way early on, before it was, like, Platinum and DevCon and all that shit. But he was in Texas, but used to come stay with us in Arizona because his dentist was here.
Okay.
And I remember his first year, him and his wife went out for summer, and I was still like a sophomore in high school at that point. And after kind of being with them, he was like, dude, you need to get into this. Like, you need to get in door-to-door sales. And I didn't really think much on it. He's like, you have kind of the gift of gab, like you should do it. But I was a sophomore in high school, so I didn't really think anything of it. And then a couple years went by, and a gentleman actually, I've been with my wife since I was 15, 16, and she was 15. And I was at her house one day, and a dude knocked on her door, and I answered for, like, her parents and stuff because they asked me to get the door. And that dude actually ended up recruiting me into selling alarms around Arizona, and then I had a buddy that ironically was going to do alarms too and go out to Dallas, Texas. So then I actually ended up following that guy because I was like, I want to go check out Texas and sell alarms, see if we could figure this thing out. So the only really real job I had is there was a short stint of working at One Stop Nutrition in high school. And then there was a short stint of selling gym memberships at LA Fitness. Okay. And then real hardcore sales is when the door-to-door space came in.
Yeah. And so it's kind of interesting. I didn't know which path this conversation would lead, but it kind of flooded me back to my first summer knocking on doors. And, it's kind of wild because when I got into door-to-door sales, I had just gotten off a mission, and a lot of guys from my small hometown had done it. And so did preseason in Utah, and then we were going out to Washington, D.C. Yeah. And this was right after the 2008 bubble, so this was summer of 2009.
For sure.
And, for the first time in my life, I was a minority out there. We're going into these wealthy neighborhoods, African-American people that were working for the government, and I'm just from freaking Utah where everybody's white or whatever. And so it was like a cultural shock, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, it really taught me to like love other cultures, get to know other types of people and kind of see how they operate. But it definitely took me a while. I mean, I remember the first week or two, dude, I mean, I was out there and it was just like pouring rain, like not having much success, and like just kind of kept going. But for you, and this is what I always kind of like to ask people that have been in the industry a long time, like, it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, how long you've been doing it, like there will be points and times where you're like broke down, ready to like quit, or past ready to quit, like you're done with it. Is there any experience or two that come to mind where you're just like, dude, I cannot do this anymore?
Dude, yeah, multiple times, even throughout the career, whether like my wife was over it, whether I was over it, whatever the case may be. But it's funny to hit on what you're saying, like that culture shock. I just had an office last summer in Maryland. Okay. And we nailed DC and Virginia too. And I know what you mean by that. We were in Prince George's County, where 99% of the people there, they're African American. And so I was out of place. It was kind of crazy, but I learned so many good things, a lot of dinners, a lot of cookouts, a lot of like how that part of the world works. And it ended up being our top performing office for solar this last summer. But to answer the question, I actually think of the story. So my first summer, and I'll try to say this as like quickly as possible, but the dude that recruited me to go out to Dallas, Texas, I get a flight. I don't know if you remember Danny Gold or Jordan Murray. I don't know. They were these dudes running a dealer called ProLink at the time. I remember the name. And my buddy at the time, he went ghost. Like I flew out there, got picked up by the manager. The manager took me to Grand Prairie, Texas, and pointed up to the third story and said, "Hey, you're up in one of those apartments." Like he didn't even know which one. And I'm calling my buddy Chaz, like the manager, like, yo, like where is this guy? And his phone's just going ghost. And come to find out, he had some issues at the Texas-El Paso border and got held up for a couple weeks there. And that's just the God honest truth. And I ended up being stuck in Dallas or Grand Prairie, Texas, starting a summer with like no experience whatsoever. Never had sold an alarm back home, even though I was trying to do it. Got there, and long story short, I get up to the third story and I knock on the door, and this lady answers. She goes, "Baby, what you doing?" You know, and I was like, "What am I doing?" And she's like, "You're with the salesmen, and they're down the hall. They're on the right hand side." So I'm like, "Cool." Knocked on that door. I still keep in contact with these dudes today, Joey Silva and Gio and Jesus, and it was all the first year freaking apartment. So I go up there and I'm there, and literally within the first day I'm there, they proceed to tell me like, "Hey, we're headed home soon. None of us have sold. Like, this is actually a really shitty job." and they were like, "You probably don't want to do this." Like, and it was the worst thing I could hear. Like showing up, I'm 18, I'm leaving home for the first time, and I was like, "Oh boy, what?" I felt like I maybe got scammed. I was like, "What kind of did I just get myself into?" But long story short, they ended up leaving. I ended up realizing they had no money. I had no money. There was no shower curtain. The shower head was tilted straight towards the wall, where like we would hug the wall and shower ourselves. Like we had no money. And I remember they had all been home. I got really lonely and depressed. I was being dropped off all day, going to the park, not doing anything, that type of kid. And then I remember I had my first breaking point, and I remember I called home to my dad, and it was kind of a really memorable moment for me, because I was our apartment also wasn't pre-furnished that well. Like there was 2 twin-size mattresses just on the floor of each room, and like whatever freaking sheet you brought with you. Like that's kind of how it was. And I remember calling my dad, kind of crying and being like, "Hey, you know, I need to borrow some money or whatever." He's like, "Dude, I don't got any money to loan you, and if I did, I'd get you a Greyhound bus ticket home. But if I do that, you're a quitter." And I didn't raise a quitter. So like you need to figure this out, and don't call me again talking about quitting. And I was like, holy fuck, like that's crazy. You know what I mean? So I was just like, I kind of had that moment like, dude, let's get it. Like, let's figure this out. And dude, my strategy going to turf was walking 20 miles a day, finding monotronic signs in people's yards, knocking the doors and saying, "We're that company. if you put that yard sign out, we'll give you some free equipment. You know?
Yeah.
I ended up picking off a few deals, and then finally my buddy who got held up at the border got unheld at the border and got out there, taught me the switch over pitch and other techniques of the game. And it's crazy to go back in that moment because it's so surreal for me. I remember it so much. I get kind of emotional about it because it was the first time too I really, like, when my dad told me that, it was like, no, you're right. Like,
right.
You're exactly right. Like, that's not me. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to do it. And then I oftentimes, my wife and I talk about this all the time. It's like, what if you did quit back then? Like, because we've made a killing. Like, we've had a great career. My wife, my family, and I, we live a life of abundance, and financially too. And so it was kind of like, what would have happened if I would have not done that? Because here we are 10 years later, or 12 years later, 13 years later, somewhere around there. And it's like, this is all I've ever done since. And I kind of had that moment of just maturing and wanting to take it seriously. So yeah, I've had those points.
Well, that's what's kind of crazy because I, going through my points back when I sold alarms. So I did alarms for 3 years, and it's kind of interesting looking back because when I was there in that moment, all I was looking for was a way off the doors. And that's a very common thing in the industry. Even now is like, the moment you get on the doors, you're like, how the hell do I get away from these things? So I actually did, for a few years, worked corporate America, realized how bad that sucked. And then it's like, let me try real estate. Then all of a sudden I'm thrown back in Heliosun, where we met. And I just, it's crazy because it's like, it's the hardest job, but it's also the easiest job. Meaning that, like, it's the hardest working, mental exhaustion, rejection, like, especially before you kind of figure it out or have your first taste of success, like, it just seems impossible. But then there's that switch when it's like you find your groove, you find your rhythm, and it's just like, dude, like, no one can say no to me.
Well, it's funny because bringing up Heliosun, that's where you were the dog there. Like, when I came there, it was like, we all need to be like Beamer. Like, we need to chase that guy. And it's funny because how I ended up at Heliosun, I know this sounds like a trip, but so that was 13, my first summer in Dallas. 14 and 15, dude, I really slacked off, like smoked pot every day, just try to live this, like, I'm going to go out for 6 months, make all this money, and come home and be Scarface and, like, just have a ton of fun and live. I'm this, like, wannabe baller. You know what I mean? Like, in all seriousness, like, I felt on top of the world or whatever. And I got married in 2016 or March of 2016. My high school sweetheart got married, and I hit a really low point again where I found myself living in my sister-in-law's basement. Jana, she's amazing. She's like the best sister-in-law you could have. But I found myself in her basement. Couldn't afford, like, I think she only wanted like $200 a month from us to live there or whatever. My wife's working as like a dental assistant, a caregiver, plus at like a daycare. I'm at home just chilling in the basement, being depressed, trying to get off the doors, like studying for my insurance license because I thought I wanted to do that. And it was so funny because my sister-in-law comes downstairs one day and realized, like, 2 months has gone by and this kid's just in my basement. What's he doing? And dude, and her and I've talked about this. We're good. I love her with all my heart. But she came downstairs and was just like, "You're a piece of shit," like, and just whacked me, bro. Like, no, true story. Like, my sister wouldn't have married a guy like you. All these things. It was just like her inner, like, mama bear, protective older sister coming out. But she fucking drilled me, bro. Like, and it floored me. And I was so broke and being such a degenerate that, like, I couldn't have an ego to be like, well, screw you, or, like, want to talk back to her because I was also in her house and everything. I'm like, dude, she's right. Like, you know what I mean? And it's a crazy story because I remember in the basement in that room, it's a master room. So you have your a bathroom and stuff. And I go to take a shower, and I remember looking at myself in the mirror. And I was like, this can never happen again. Like, that's the thought I had. And ironically, Dallin Sullivan and Brian Belknap call me the next day, and I'll never forget it. They're like, hey, dude, you gotta check out this solar thing with Heliosun. And I'm like, what solar thing? Like, what's solar? Like, you know what I mean? They're like, I just made 10 grand. Like, the paycheck just hit my account. And I remember Dallin sent me a screenshot and it said Heliosun, and it was like 10 grand. I'm like, well, holy shit, if he just did that, no offense, but I'll go do 5 times that. Like my ego kind of kicked in. That very next day, I showed up to a Heliosun meeting, and that's where I met you and Rex and Spencer, and then I got out of the basement within 2 months.
Jeez. No, that's kind of the crazy thing, because it's like, obviously, you know, and you've probably seen it as a leader, it's like you never really know the impact of others. Like literally, you know, Dallin and Belknap, like probably don't even think about it, or maybe they don't even know, but like just them sharing that opportunity, like kind of
changed my life.
Yeah, changed your life for the better. Speaking of the Heliosun days, dude, they're a little blurry on some things, but dude, it's kind of like the funniest small world in solar. I just remember like just a few points where it's like just you and your guys just like absolutely out there crushing it. And I remember Rex said something like, yeah, Brandon and his cronies out there just freaking kicking ass, you know, just like,
we're the band of bandits. Like it was just like Sundance Kid and Butch Cassidy going
but you
out
guys
there.
just kind of like reveled in it, and like you just kind of took that chip on your shoulder, and like you guys were younger than a lot of the guys. It was like, it didn't matter. You guys were going to go out there and perform, and kind of funny enough, some of the evolutions from that. I don't know if you want to tell the fusion story or anything on that.
Dude, well, yeah, we've actually, believe it or not, especially in Arizona with solar, like we've pioneered a lot of it. Like you too, and even with what you did with the Heliosun movement, and then going to, was it Volt?
Because it was kind of like one of the first
legit
dealers, kind of, you know,
because
like in that model.
Dude, back then, and that ties into the fusion story. So back then you had Logan Newby, like I think Tyler McAllister was a part of it. You had Jared Gillespie, and then they were at Logan Newby. I don't know if I said that actually, but they were running with Legacy and Elmer Reyna. Shout out Elmer. Like, yeah, me and him talk quite a bit these days, or here and there, I should say. But I got into it with Elmer on the doors. Basically we were fighting over the same customer, and it was kind of bullshit because Legacy was in with Sunrun.
Right. I
was selling Sunrun with Heliosun, and they took the Legacy account. Like they canceled mine out and went with Elmer, even though we were selling the same damn thing. And Elmer sold her at a higher. Back then it was like 11.5 cents or something, or 10.5 cents or something like that. Well, I remember calling Logan Newby. And I'm like, whoever's in the Audi with a Legacy magnet on it, I'm going to slash his tires if he keeps coming into my accounts. Well, come to find out, it's Elmer Reyna. Right. And we're fighting over the same account. And I call Logan, and I'm just like, dude, I can charge the customer this. And I remember Logan being like, what did you just say? Because at the pricing I was charging, I was like, dude, that's a $9,000 deal for me. And I was coming in for like $40 a month less than what you guys are coming in. He's like, no, you're not. You can't do that. And I'm like, the fuck I can't, like that's what I'm doing. And so Logan then goes, can we meet up? And I'm like, sure, man, like come on, we'll meet in Hood or whatever. So Logan and I meet up. I show him my pricing. Back then you and I already had a red line, and they were on like $200-$300 a kilowatt, or something with Legacy. And Logan was like, what the hell is this red line? I can't believe this, whatever. So and Rex, I got Rex involved. And Rex was like, hey, I'm not trying to be like offensive or anything, but you don't really know Redline Talk, how this all works. They're going to probably want to be a dealer. Let me go to dinner with them and try to do that. Well, I think back then Rex offered him like a 195 way back in the day, like which is crazy to think about. And I'm pretty sure that's what he offered him, because what I ended up hearing was they left Legacy, started Fusion with Titan because Titan gave them like 5 cents of a lower red line. And then they grew into what they are today. They left Titan, started installing procurement, and dude, they figured it out. They do a good job. They do a pretty good job. I ended up running a dealer with them for a little bit, and then went to our world with my ex-business partners on that venture. And yeah, it's kind of crazy to see it all full circle, because Mark Durham's over there with them. Mark Durham and I used to run into each other on the doors in Mesa selling alarms and stuff. And it was funny because when I did bring my dealer there, he's like, dude, it's the craziest freaking thing that you were kind of that vessel of why Fusion became what it was, and now you're here like running a dealer with us. And this was a few years back, but it came full circle. It was the weirdest thing.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a trip just how everything's connected and how things have evolved over time. And that's what's kind of wild about the solar industry, is like even just the time we've been in it, like you just see so many changes with, you know, from political side, utility, but even just the way companies operate, you know, because back then it was like you're either Solar City, Sunrun, Vivint, SunPower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
then it
Legacy was kind of like popping up a little bit here and there.
But then it was like all sales orgs, you know, for a long time. And then people like us, Fusion, others, like we started installing pretty quickly after a while. And then it was like, it's funny because we've met with a lot of the dealers in Arizona that, like, what's interesting is a couple years back when solar was just like absolutely on fire, a lot of these sales companies were literally on the verge of becoming installers themselves. But what happened with the lenders taking away M1 payments and switching things, like, made them all hold off. And so it's definitely been an interesting couple of years, you know, with like literally hundreds of solar companies going out of business. You know, I guess for you, kind of switching topics a little bit, like, what I've been kind of most impressed with you, just knowing you for about a decade, is like, obviously just like, I'd say like your evolution and involvement.
Thank you.
Yeah, as like a person, like knowing your personal story with your family, you know, kind of the highs and lows. That's the thing, is like everybody wants success to just be like this straight linear line.
I wanted it too.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, I started selling, I know how to figure it out. But like, I remember every summer, even parts of summers, even, you know, it happens from time to time now, like you maybe get in a rut, you doubt yourself, you're like, man, can I keep doing this? Like, I've just literally exhausted everything that I have. I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then you wake up the next day and you just keep doing it. I mean, what is it for you, I guess, intrinsically that just kind of keeps you going through everything?
Dude, it's those pivotal moments of feeling like I let people down around me and I got called out on it. And it was my duty to make that right. Like, I go back to the days in the basement. I was even busting jokes with my sister-in-law the other day about it, and I'm like, you know, if you wouldn't have done that, or if that wouldn't have happened, I don't know if I'd have the work ethic I have today. So I dedicate that a lot to Jana, my wife. I am a father of 2, and I am super driven of making sure that they see me and I lead by example, because they're young. They're going to be young men in this world that's pretty ruthless, and you got to be prepared for that, and you got to be ready to take it on. But I would say also just the personal development aspect of it. Like, I wanted to get into real estate. I wanted to buy nice houses. I wanted to be able to do those things. And really, I grew up in a home of, don't get me wrong, like, we weren't super poor or whatever, but we only had enough for like what we needed. And my parents, bless their heart, they just had a lot of kids, and we were doing the best we can. But it did teach me, like, I wanted more than that. And so as long as I stayed out of my own way and I stuck the course, it was good. But my wife has really kept me on track with that. Like, she's not only like my wife, my teammate, but she's my business partner. So it's funny, she knows how to tame the dog, is what I say. It's like, she knows.
Everyone's got that dog in them.
Everyone's got the dog in them, and sometimes you need the female to pull it out of you, you know what I mean? And it's okay, and not have an ego and let her do that, because she sees a lot of what I don't see, even in myself. And so there's a lot of times when I struggle with that confidence, or I am in doubt, or I'm kind of going through that rut, she sniffs it out right away and it's like, hey, let's talk about it, you know what I mean? And then she'll kind of counsel me through that, whatever. She's also like my training partner, like my CrossFit coach. Like, we have a very non-ego relationship, when I look to her as like a teacher too sometimes. So I do follow a lot of her guidance on that. And a lot of it was just, there's those pivotal moments in life when purpose hits you, like you become a father, you get married, and your level of love expands, and you want to take care of those people, and you want to, especially for me, I want my sons to see that, like, dad gets up and goes and gets it, and like, we live a good life because of it, and they need to be like that too. You know? So that's in my opinion a lot of it, but I have always just been wired to chase money. Like, that is just kind of there. I don't know if it's healthy or not to some degree, but it is still in me, just want to have a life of abundance, and unfortunately to do that, depending on what your definition of that is, you need a lot of money.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's obviously not free to live, especially in this economy. I mean, one thing that kind of sparked, I guess, just thinking about it, because I remember at times, you know, and I think we've all kind of had these points where it's like, here's where you are. And then you see ultimately, whether it's monetary things, you know, houses, cars, whatever your kind of external motivations are. Was there ever a point where you're just like, dude, here's where I'm at, here's where those are, and that just seems like miles away, which
Forever
sounds
away.
like you have.
Yeah.
What were maybe a few things, like if you were to maybe give some advice to somebody listening that's like, hey, here's where they're at, like maybe they have the ambition or maybe they're in a rut, you know, wherever they're here, their goals are out there and they're just like, I don't even have the slightest clue of like how to kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, and a lot of it is being pretty clear on what do you think you want, what are your dreams, right? There's wants and needs and there's dreams, right? And like what of those fill you? Because I've also been on the other side of it where I do get that $1 million home or that fancy property or whatever, and I'm not fulfilled.
Yeah.
And that was a trip. That when I got to that point where I was like, why the fuck is this not making me happy?
Right.
Like I'm in this huge house, I'm feeling like Drake, I'm looking out over the mountains, you know what I mean? Got a Rolex on my wrist, walking around the house thinking all this shit that I was like, I'm going to feel away because I get that. I had this crazy experience where once I obtained all that, I felt empty. I felt like, damn, I thought I was going to have this crazy feeling of like, I'm on the world, and I'm not. I still have the same problems. I'm still dealing with my own shit and my own demons. And really, I realized it's cool to have all those and get those. And I'm not saying you shouldn't get those. People should get that stuff because it helps. But I realized it was the time and the freedom of time and with my family. But to answer the question, when something feels so far away, you have to have good awareness. You got to realize you're in a down moment. You're in your feels. Your emotions are kind of taken over. And really, what seems so far away is really not just in your mind. It is. Yeah. And you need to keep going. Have you seen that meme on like Facebook and Instagram where the dude with the pickaxe is like this far away from the diamonds, and then above him the guy's turned around and he's like looks defeated? Yeah. I always remember of that picture when I feel like that milestone's too far, because it's really not. It's just far away in your head.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because it's like, I think it's a Nick Saban quote, but it's like everybody's like trying to climb to the top of the mountain, but when you also get there, like there's no books on like, there's no strategy for like how do you handle success, how do you handle fulfillment? Because I had something similar like back in 2022. You know, I've always done a vision board for a long time.
I remember that. You had the rules on there.
Yeah. And at no point I felt like I did it for like almost a decade, and like really rarely did I even like check anything off. But then one year, like 21, 22, like I literally checked everything off. Like the vehicle I wanted to drive, the house. And I had the same experience. Yeah, I got a boat. Like I had the same exact experience where I'm like, dude, I have all these things that I've ever wanted, but like I'm still dealing with the same shit. I still have the same, problems, and it's like it's a weird place to be.
A very weird place to be. It's almost like, and I wouldn't even say it's like imposter syndrome. It's just this realization of like, holy shit, everything I've worked towards, thought I wanted, that would give me this feeling that I was craving, is not there. Yeah. When I have, at the end of the day, it's still a watch, even though I'm a freaking fanatic for those. But it's still a car. Yeah. It's still a house. But what's in the house that makes sense, and it's your family, it's your girlfriend or your people, the people you love, you want to share that with or whatever. And that's what really hit for me. And now the mindset has shifted a little bit because I've chased money for so long. Like last year, my partner and I, we ran one of the largest regions at Solar Pros, which is a pretty dominant force in this space. There's no one doing it like them. They're the top. They're the Vivint now. Right. You know what I mean? On Trenbolone, on steroids. Like they're the big dogs. I think they did like 30,000 installs this year or something. We did 1,800, 1,900 of them or something as a region. And even then, at the end of the day, like I was talking to Kevin about this, my boy. I'm like, what did this really get us? Like at the end of the day, like bragging rights, like in this world of what,
you get to start all over next year.
We gotta do it all over again, whatever. And there's some side projects we're working on and some things we're heading on outside of it. But it's funny because I've even gotten to that. That's what we chased. We're like, we want to be the #1 region. We want to have all this volume. And then at the end of the day, we're both scratching our heads, kind of like, you feel good? I don't know. Do you feel good? Like there's really not that feeling, man. Yeah. And I don't know. I was not prepared for that because it's like you're saying that quote from Nick Saban, like there's not a lesson on how to do your taxes when you're young and making money. Like you get to that point and you're looking around and going, I thought this was everything I wanted. I've really at the point now, having kids, wife, the life, the family, the money, everything coming and going. I just want peace.
Yeah.
That's what I found. My world has been loud for a long
Sure.
time, and I've been chasing, and I've kind of lost my center
Sure.
of that. And so I've done a lot of personal work. Like I've hired Parker Haleen. Do you remember that name?
Name sounds familiar.
He brought Danny Pesci into the industry.
Oh, cool.
So Parker Haleen studied with indigenous people abroad in Bali and in other countries and learned plant medicine, learned rituals, learned the ways of how they do things. And that's partly why I hired him. Is he's a man full of wisdom at the age he's at. He's a total stud, and he works with Doug Cartwright, stuff like that. But I hired him because the main goal was I need you to help me find happiness and peace and more love and kind of my softer side than this kind of the Brandon I've always known that's just hard nosed and goes and gets it. You know what I mean? Like I'm tired of that. So that's kind of my mindset now, having all those things. Is I wish I wouldn't have lost a lot of peace or my center. I kind of lost who I was chasing all of that.
Yeah, and I think that's important, you know, as you deal with success. And like almost success is sometimes a little more dangerous than failure.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when I was struggling and like at least I was like, I kind of had this chip of like, you kind of romanticize what it's going to be like when you finally get there. And then you get there and you're like, this is not at all what I thought. And I have the same experience. Like I've had a coach I worked with for 8 or 9 years that like I hire him, right? Like there's certain things in your life. I feel like if I were to sum it up, that it's like, chasing success, like it seems like glamorous, wild, fun, crazy. But then when you kind of get there to that certain level or a level that you've never been to before, it's almost like what's going to keep you there and maybe even propel you forward is like, it's not all that crazy, glitzy, whatever. It's like actually more simple. Yeah. I think if there's anything the last couple of years has taught us in solar with the shift in the market is like, just like be grateful for what you got. Like, find ways to be happy, dude. And it's like, it's kind of wild to like force yourself to do that. But like, once again, like we're not taught any of that in school. No. Like religions try to do it to some extent, but they have their own little box you have to fit into. And it's like, no, like what's Brandon's box? What's Tyler's box? Like what makes me happy? And whatever those answers are, that's perfect and okay. You know? Like you don't have to be in someone else's box. Like at the end of the day, it's you and your family and that's it. Like you're almost creating your own box of happiness, your own rules.
You do. That's perfectly said. You have to find your own tribe, your box, your things. Because now it's so simple. Right. It's like I just want to take care of my friends and my family. I want to love my wife and kids and be with them a lot more. And for so long, I wanted the material. And it's funny because if you pay attention, or for those listening that pay attention, like there's a reason why celebrities and people who do go from rags to riches or money to more money or whatever, they're not happy or they have issues or they commit suicide, or this is real problems. This is a real thing. And it's like you said, sometimes too much success too soon, it can hurt you. Yeah. Because you don't know how to deal with it. I remember my first year making over $1 million, and it was like over 100 grand was hitting the account every month. And I was just like, holy shit, like this is sick. This is going to last forever. We could buy this, we could buy that. And then we had a partnership go south. I exited that, and then it was like the world changed. All of a sudden I was in the mountains on a farm with my wife and kids, and I didn't have a business anymore and things like that. And so I had to really buckle down and pull my bootstraps back out, and my wife kind of be like, go get it. Like we got to find that dog again, because you've gotten comfortable and you've kind of been able to chill. And there was a lot of self-sabotaging moments with substances and things like that I was going through, that I had to kick those habits and kind of change who I was hanging out with a little bit and stuff like that. But it was one of those things where no one prepares you for it. You're not going to be ready for it. You're going to have to go through it. And all I would just recommend is have the awareness. Yeah. Have the awareness to recognize that you are going through that moment and that shift, and you just buckle up for it, because it may knock you on your ass, or it may catapult you into the next best thing. Yeah, no, I agree. And like, I feel like that's kind of ultimately what I had to settle on was, I think growing up, maybe it was just religious wise, like there's a lot of like, check the box, check the box, check the box, check the box, check the box. And then you go through like all these things, and then finally there's no more boxes to check. And so I felt like with finances, with fitness, with business, with whatever, like relationship, it's like, oh, well, let me just do this, check that off the list, then I'm good. But like,
to continually be happy, to continually be healthy, to continue to grow, like there's no end in sight.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like life is like, there's no stopping, because like whether it's, you know, health and fitness, like you stop, you know, eating good things and you stop working out, like you're going to get fat and out of shape, right?
Yeah.
Business, like you keep spending money and you stop making money, like you're eventually going to run out. And so it's like this continuous journey that like you have to go from like a final destination happiness approach to like, let me figure out where can I find happiness along the way. And I feel like everything you're saying kind of centering into is like, those are things that last though. Like the relationship with your family, the relationship with yourself, the example you're setting. And what I think will ultimately happen through all that is like all the good that you probably want in this world, like you take care of yourself, you take care of those closest around you, like people see that. People recognize that, and eventually that's going to rub off onto family, friends, and those people. And like, I think that's like, I guess if I were to ask you, maybe you thought about it, maybe you haven't, but like, what do you want Brandon's legacy to be 20, 30, 40 years down the road?
You know, I have like a lot of my like personal like goals or legacy. It's kind of family, but I want love. Like I want love in our household and it to be very strong. But I think anyone would tell you, and this is not to like boast or be braggadocious, people only really know one Brandon. I've never been a guy that's like one way or another way or feeling away one day or that day. Like I can get upset, I can be human, like I can do those things too. But I just want people to remember that like my interactions with them were always positive or loving, or they felt good, or you know, I've always been told like you kind of just have this aura about you, this different type of energy. People are attracted to it, and I don't abuse that privilege. Like I use it to uplift people and help people. And I'm going through a period right now, just full transparency too. I'm going through a period right now where I'm trying to right a lot of my past wrongs. I'm trying to rekindle relationships of people that hurt me, or you know, because I don't know. I've lived with this kind of like void or burden for so long that I felt like I was good to them and they were bad to me. And it's like, why did that happen? But I'm forgiving them. You know, one of them texted me on the way in here. It was crazy. And he's like, hey, can we please connect? Like, I know we're both feeling it. And it's been a few years since we've been together and worked together and we're good friends. And I told him like, yeah, let's talk, because I want forgiveness too. And I want to forgive people. I'm tired of living with anger and kind of built up tension just because of past shit, when we're all on this journey of life trying to grow and be better. And I'm not going to hold that against him, even though I was really hurt about it. My feelings were hurt. But really the legacy is I just want people to understand forgiveness, love, and just be a positive influence to those people around you, because you never know what they truly are going through, even if they're your close friends, because it's hard for men to kind of come to another dude and say, hey, I'm struggling, like help me, like I'm desperate or whatever. And I'm that guy that will take that phone call and say, hey, it's okay, like we're in this together, like I'm going through the shits too, like let's go up Shit's Creek together and let's figure this out. So really just a legacy of being a positive influence of just love and forgiveness and just making sure people feel like when I've had an interaction with them or they've come across me, it was always positive. And maybe it added value to their life somehow, some way. You know what I mean?
No, that's awesome. I mean, as far as long term goes, I don't know that any of us could ask for much more than that. But as you kind of shift your focus, you know, the kind of short to midterm, what's kind of next for you on your journey?
Honestly, so like business wise, like I guess we could start business wise and then do personal, right? But business wise, I actually have recently stepped back from a leadership role at Solar Pros. And that was a mutual thing between me and Curtis Burwell, my VP, and he's awesome. He took care of us a lot last year. Like he bore a huge financial burden and really helped us out. And he basically was just like, hey man, I can't have you with the title you have being focused on these other projects, other things, because I don't want the org starting to think like, hey, we could do that too. And it was totally sincere. And I looking back on it in the moment, maybe I was a little kind of like feeling a way about it. But I was like, well, this is his business too. Like this makes sense. And so after long thought on it and meeting Josh Sutherland, you've heard
Yeah.
about his name and his partner. I really pondered on it, and like in my gut knew I was like, I need to pursue this. Like I need to get this together. So it's a new company. It's called Haven Hub. They've streamlined how to sell front yards, backyards, and home improvement stuff. And there's a streamlined process there that's kind of disrupting that industry, excuse me. And so my business partner and I are still involved in what we do together and stuff like that. So we're moving and grooving, as well as another partner as well. We're all moving and grooving together and just building out these projects. And then I stepped away from that. I wanted to, I've learned with trying to find peace, simple is just better in everything. Yeah. And I was responsible for like probably 300 plus reps, all this volume, all these things. And I took on a lot of stress these last couple of years that I was like, you know what, I think I could do this without feeling like this. Right. And so that's what this opportunity is bringing. And then in terms of personal life, I've hired a coach for the first time ever. Cool. Like that was kind of weird for me because I've seen so many people, even in the religion realm, it's kind of like transpired into this, like we're coaches and we'll fix your problems and make you rich. Right. And there's some fucking phonies out there that are not good people, you know what I mean? And so I've watched a lot of people join groups and these guy groups that travel and do all these things. And I wanted to look more for someone that could teach me more love and how to have more love in my household and be a more loving man and kind of soften up a little bit, as fruity as that sounds, you know what I mean? But that's in my personal life, dude. I just want to be an A1 father, an A1 husband, and provide for them, give them the life they deserve, because my wife busts her ass and deserves the world, and so did my kids. And so really it's just I'm taking a step back, simplifying life a little bit. I've realized I can live on very low income or high income. It doesn't really matter, and I'm more focused more than ever before on we may actually move back down here because this Haven Hub thing's exploding. It's caught a lot of traction, and it is getting pretty busy. Not stressful, but busy. Sure. So we're possibly moving back down here and going to do that because I live like 4 hours from here. Right. But to really dig down, it's just I just want to be a better me, man. And I feel like I haven't reached any of my potential or what I could be in the household or outside of the household. And that's kind of my focus and trying to be an influence for others to do the same. I think it takes a lot for a man to kill his pride and ego and be like, I'm okay with trying to hire someone to teach me more love and soft tenderness and things like that. And that's what I'm really working on in my personal life. That's awesome.
And and I feel like, kind of put a ball on that, just my experience with having a coach is like, and everyone's different obviously, but I think at first I was just like, tell me everything I need to do, show me this, show me that. Like I was looking at every kind of external thing, and then like where he kind of kept guiding me was like just back to me. Like
in yourself.
Yeah, like loving yourself, taking care of yourself, treating yourself well, your inner dialogue, like if the man is right, his world will be too. That's
You're exactly right.
Lived by, or at least recently thought a lot about.
That's very true.
Yeah, because like at the end of the day, like there's no amount of money, success, whatever that's gonna like if you're hurting on the inside or you feel like you're lacking, nothing out there is gonna like fill that void long term.
Exactly. It's crazy because I believe it or not, I don't live down here right now, and so Belknap came back to town from Georgia. He's my brother, so he came back to town, and he's my uncle too. So I
forgot about that.
Yeah, he's my brother uncle. I call him. He's like a year and a half older than me. Yeah, so we're brother, uncle, and nephew, whatever. But we grew up together as brothers. Like that's my brother. And we were at my grandparents' house last night. Somehow ended up staying up till 1:45 a.m. talking to my grandma and Brian, and religion got brought up, the church got brought up, and everything. And it was funny because my grandma and I really agreed on something, and it was pretty cool. But sometimes the answers are in your own higher power and within yourself. And a lot of people want that easy road or to be told what to do, and so they seek that through religion or coaches or self-help books or whatever. When really the true work is in you and in your own higher power and how you feel when you look in the mirror and everything. And so it was kind of funny to cap the story. I ended up realizing it was 1:45. I'm like, shit, I got to go do a podcast with Beamer in the morning. I don't want to be tired. I want to show up ready. You know what I mean? And I drove to my brother and sister-in-law's house. It was 2:40 by the time I got there. All doors are locked, and I'm like, fuck. I was like, so I had to hurry up and drive 20 minutes over to my parents' house, get into their garage. All the beds were being used, and I had to just find a bed and crash out. By the time that happened, it was 3:30 a.m. and got up. So I was like, I got to get here. I got to hang out with Beamer and do this thing. You know what I mean? But It's funny.
Well, no, and I appreciate you coming on, man. I just love everything about you, just your energy, the vulnerability and everything, and just excited to see what you do next. And I know no matter what it is, you're gonna make a positive impact, and that's kind of the cool thing is I think like, dude, everywhere you went, like you've always had people come with you, and I think that speaks more than anything. That it's like people follow you, they follow good people, right? They follow people they want to be like. They follow people that take care of them, and that's something that.
It's funny. One of those things. Drake has a line in a song where he's like, the keeping my people fed's my only peace of mind now. Yeah. Or he says something like that in one of his songs, and I've always taken that to heart. I'm a huge Drake fan. Shout out Drake and Kendrick, whatever. But no, I'm a huge Drake fan, and his lyrics really hit home for me on a lot of songs. But when I hear that, I am the definition of that. I do truly care and worry about other people's lives more than mine a lot of time, and sometimes it's done me good, sometimes it's done me bad, but I don't care. I that's just where my heart is, and so I do feel like people follow good people, and I follow good people too. Like it's not like I'm the leader. I have my leaders too. You know what I mean? And that's that. And it's been interesting because we are surrounded by a lot of people right now that have exited multiple companies, big companies. And watching their teams follow them through these different business ventures, I was like, that's the guy you got to be. Yeah. Because if you have that, wherever you go, your team comes with you and you're going to be fine. Yeah,
and I've always felt like people are the biggest or the best currency. Yeah, because Bitcoin's up and down, Dogecoin, whatever, but like having people, like you have a culture, you treat people right, you give them amazing opportunities, like they'll freaking follow you through anything. Yep. And so, definitely you can't control everything, but you can control who you are, how you treat people, and taking care of them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I'll ask you two things before this wraps up, but where are you headed? I mean, I love you. Sure. I've watched you from afar, and I've always been in your corner rooting you on, and I feel like we came in at very unique times in this industry. I've watched Bright Home do this like any other thing, and you guys this is a phenomenal office. It's fucking huge. It's like the fantasy factory here. You got a bunch of people, you got social media, you have a whole ecosystem built out. Like, what's next for you guys?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. I mean, recently we did like an offsite meeting based on the book called Traction, where it's really just defining your core values and then like your 1 year, your 3 year, your 10 year. But like our goal, just to be very simple, is like obviously through our core values. But when we started this thing, we had 3 main values that we were going to live by. 1 is to take care of our people, 2 is to take care of your customers, and 3 to be around long term. And I think it's literally in that order. Like if you take care of your people, you treat them well, you give them a good culture, you feed them, that's naturally going to like permeate to the customer. They're going to want to give the customer a good experience because that's a reflection on them and us. And that's also what it's allowed us to be around long term. But our goal and what our mission is to be like the go-to solar company here in Arizona. Cool. There are some good companies here. There's obviously some not so good companies, but that's what we're focused on. We also own a mitigation company we've been doing for 6 years, and then a roofing company for 2. So, we don't want to go too much crazier because it's kind of like what you said. Like you kind of keep going after these shiny things, and you're like, well, if we had that, that'll make me happy. We'll be so rich. And then you're like, hell, now I got 3 times the problems. And not 3 times the money.
That's true. Yeah, 3 times the stress and problems, but not money.
But and I think just personally though, is just kind of what you're saying, dude. I really resonated with that. Is like, dude, just finding my own inner peace on a daily basis. Exactly. I think if you can do that. Some way, somehow, everything else is going to take care of it.
It will. And that's the ultimate life hack I'm trying to figure out, is how to find peace. Yeah. And I'm not sad, I'm not super depressed or anything, but I have those thoughts of like, man, how do I just be okay with life and everything? Because I feel like I have 10 arrows in my back, my shield is up, and sometimes you got a team around you, but we're all hurting. Yeah. We're all kind of going through that. And so how do you align the energy every day to just feel good, feel okay.
No, it's a big responsibility, and I think that's something that probably, I think leadership is a very thankless position.
Yep.
Because everyone's always looking to you like, you're rarely getting all the credit if things go well, and you're getting all the shit when things go wrong.
Yeah.
And most people, like in a sort of any organization, it's like they either like want to be you or like beat you.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? And it's hard to be kind of like a prophet in your own land, because it's like you work with people long enough, they're going to find out your flaws. Like, dude, we all got flaws. Like, we've had people that work for us for like 7 years and like, shit, you're right. Yeah, I'm good at certain things and I suck at others. And
You're totally right.
But I think what propels that forward is like if you're open to that, if you have self-awareness, if you're saying, hey man, I'm imperfect, you're imperfect, but like let's freaking figure this out together and let's just keep going.
Yeah.
Because I think a weird way I would describe how we feel about solar right now is like we may end up winning by default in a way. Like some of it's just like
very fucking true.
Hanging on.
Yeah.
And being able to position yourself financially so you're okay and not exposed. And just freaking hold on.
Dude, can I hit on that real quick?
Yeah.
I know we got like 10 minutes or something,
good.
but it's funny because, early on, we kind of pioneered Arizona. And there was, like you were saying, there was only 3, 4, 5 companies.
Right.
And they're kind of going down the same trajectory we saw with alarms, where it was like there was Vivint, Protection One, Amp, North Star, right? Like there was like, those were like the 4 big hitters or whatever. And then we went through this space where everyone broke off to become their own dealers, get the low red lines, get the high multiple, whatever it is. And we watched that run. And then by the end of it, everyone turned back to the 2 big companies, 3 big companies, because they realized it brought sustainability, longevity, and their paycheck was secured. What's a fucking trip about solar, dude, is the big dogs are hurting. They're more vulnerable than the little guys that are just dialed in on their craft in one market. I know Josh Morton really well at OWE, and they're dialed in on like 3 or 4 markets.
Sure.
And that's his thing, and I always love it when he says it. We just want to be the best where we are.
Yeah.
And I feel like you align with that,
sure.
and that's why I love Bright Home so much too. Is I see their trucks around town when I'm here and stuff. Like we're thriving, we're good. And I was telling one of my business partners this the other day. I was just like, Freedom. That's where I'm from. They have like no cash flow right now. They're struggling. They have like a W-2 payroll of like 20+ million a month, if I'm not mistaken. So what a lot of people, and where I'm going with this is a lot of people don't realize solar is a marketplace. Solar is a fucking market share. And politics affect it. The Federal Reserve affects it. Banks, interest rates. And we're in this weird time. It's very uncontrollable, and there's so much shit going against it all the time. Any public company, stocks are down from $80 to fucking $3, right? And you got equipment manufacturers needing to rally up money to keep going. You got the big dogs. Like it was very eye-opening, but it also changed my mindset to where if these leaders of these sales orgs, these installers, these companies can get their orgs to be bought in and understand that solar is a market. It's going to have its ups and downs, ebbs and flows, like the stocks, and the S&P 500 and stuff. If you can shift your mindset and adjust your lifestyle to understanding that, you'll be fine. Because even guys like Freedom, they just need to get to summer and there's 10,000 fucking accounts a month coming in and cash flow is just through the roof. But it's just, we're in that down moment right now. But it's a really trippy time because I've talked to a lot of people in the industry, and you're safer at the small, healthy mom, pa, or that 3 to 4 market, not even quite regional installer or one really good market. You're safe. You're more safe than the $1 billion entity, and it's such a trip. It's such a trip because I've truly have never seen the market where it's at today.
And that's what's wild is because I think like the whole time we were in it, like solar was just like this.
The whole time.
And even though certain markets, like it started with Hawaii, California, Arizona, where utilities shifted things, so it went a little like smaller dips and ups, but like then it went. And
the last 2 years have just been down. And some companies, even Freedom and Solar Pros and some of these big hitters, volume went up. Like, Sunder left Freedom, Solar Pro stepped in and did 3 times their volume. And no shade at Sunder or anything, but like that's just facts. Even with healthy growth and margins like that, we still found ourselves very vulnerable.
Right.
And it was like, how? And a lot of people want to jump ship or think the grass is greener on the other
Right.
side or this. And I've told a lot of people lately, if you're a 1 to 10 man team, 1 to 20 man team, and you're in one market, find that installer there that is doing a good damn job.
Right.
Reviews, financial. I know
Sure.
Nate's the most conservative dude ever. Like
Yeah.
he watches your guys' books like a hawk. And
Yeah.
it's like and he went through the 08-09
Yeah.
crash as a contractor, right? So it's like, and he told something to me that stuck out. He's like, there's a reason why we pay cash for everything around here.
Right.
If we're over leveraged and we go in that down market, we're fucked.
Well, that's what was wild about, like, even Titan, RIP, Arcadia. Like, I know John really well and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
we, at the end of the day, like, we had good relationships with them. And then when things went south, obviously some of their stuff came to auction. We went and bought it. And just kind of hearing little nuances of, like, what happened. And they all follow similar paths. One was, like, grew too fast, too large, too big in different markets. And the second thing was they were financing things. You know what I mean? And, like, obviously, you got to do what you got to do, but like at the end of the day, it's like there's some kind of a playbook for success, and there's a playbook for a chance to have some exposure.
And that's the really risky road is volumes down. We're over leveraged.
Yep.
We have a bunch on payroll, bunch of people to take care of, and then the market goes down. How are you prepared for that?
Right.
Because it's very weird to see these billion-dollar entities come out and be like, we're dry on cash flow. And it's like, there's 100 million plus hitting that account every month. What are we doing? What's happening? But dude, it's the market. That's the market. And so it's two different visions. Do we conquer the world and go get everything and want to own it all and do all that? Maybe that's your vision. That's your dream. Go do it. But then there's the small guys like you guys and Josh Morton and Caleb at OWE and Inti's popping up on the Matt Fusion, and they've made their footprint is here. Yeah. They're here. They're not going anywhere. They've stayed. You know, we've met with Legacy a few times in the recent weeks and stuff. And the one thing that stood out to me is Doug said they're scrappy, but dude, they're the first solar company I've seen when they broke open their books. They're doing everything right. Obviously, I haven't seen your books and stuff, but like in accounting and everything with like firms and outside money wanting to come to the table. They were the first set of the books, and I think Doug wouldn't mind me saying this, but it was the first set of books I saw where I was like, holy shit, they're doing their accounting right.
Right.
Meaning everything's a debt till PTO.
Sure.
Where these other companies, that's all income, so they can get more leverage, and it's like, oh, this is bad news bears, dude.
No, it's wild, but I mean, we're bullish on solar in Arizona, and
Same. Yep.
You know, you got to continue to adapt. It's like adapt or die.
For sure.
It's just, and that's the thing. Sometimes, you know, in success and finding success is just sticking it out a little bit longer.
Stick it out, and that I'm glad you bring that up. That's the last thing I'll say on it, because I'll just fucking ramble about it. I'm obsessed with this stuff. I'm still very bullish on solar too, and everyone at my previous orgs companies, they're going to be around. Everyone's still going to be around. Sure. They're going to get through it. I think it's just going to be a bumpy road. The car's not going to be as smooth, and that's okay. But that's also going to make you that much better when you get out on the other side of it. And I truly don't think it's going anywhere. I think we're in a pivotal moment of the industry where we're about to see like shit's going to correct. Consolidation's going to happen. People are going to keep going belly up, which doesn't help us. Yeah. But it's one of those things where it's probably not the move to jump. It's probably not the move to try to get in bed with someone else and throw off your momentum in your system. Like, we vetted everything. That was been my job this last year, is to vet other companies, books, and things like that, and see what it is. And especially with an org that I was a part of our size, it just doesn't make sense to try to shake the tree and find out if the grass is green on the side, because a transition can also make or break you. Yeah. And so we realized that. And so my advice for guys, especially in Arizona or here or, you know, other markets, just stay the course. Yeah. Don't let it throw you off. Pay may be delayed with some of these people and things may happen, but it will work out. It'll come through. So it's just crazy. We've never been in a time like this before. No. Coming from two old dogs that were in it from the jump, you know what I mean? It's just, it's a trip, bro. Yeah. It's a trip.
No, I'm definitely excited to see what the future holds for us and also for you. And
Same. I'm happy to be
our
here,
friendship.
man.
So I appreciate you coming on. And
absolutely.
for all those just tuning in, thanks for hopping on. Check us out on the next episode of the Be Bright podcast, and we'll see you then.